In this video segment, we're going to talk about QuarkCon's labor, time card, and miscellaneous expense workflow settings. In QuarkCon, users are assigned the administrative or financial administrative role, or potentially a custom security role that will allow them to approve labor time cards and employee miscellaneous expenses. In addition, if the organization has 5 or more licenses, time and expense workflow can be enabled, which provides additional functionality where users can approve time and expenses for their subordinates and those employees that may not necessarily manage but are specified in their user profile. Before we demonstrate how this process works, there are a few settings to take into consideration. First of all, if you go to the help articles in QuarkCon and to the settings subheading, and under workflow, look at the time and expenses article. The information on the strict rules option in global settings is defined. A slightly different way to view this information can be seen on this chart. Again, these settings are available to those subscribers with 5 or more licenses, to have the time workflow turned off altogether, to have the time workflow on with strict rules off, and the time workflow on with the strict rules on. You can see by these green check marks the options that each column offers. If you leave the time workflow off altogether, administrators can enter time cards, financial administrators can enter time cards, managers can enter time cards for everyone, and employees can enter time cards for everyone. But when we look at the time and expense approval, only administrators can approve time cards and financial administrators can approve time cards. The second column represents the options to turn on workflow but leave the strict rules off. In this case, everyone can enter time cards, and the approval process is added for managers to approve time cards for subordinates. The final option takes away some of the user's abilities to enter time cards and shifts that to the manager's ability. Also, the approval process can be added so that managers can approve time cards for subordinates. In all 3 options, employees cannot approve their own time cards. For the illustrations we're talking about today, we're going to use the options mentioned in the second column, where time workflow is turned on, but strict rules are turned off. To change these settings, if you are an administrator, simply go to the global settings, down to the workflow option, and then to time and expenses. You will see the options here. For this example, we're leaving the "Do you wish to use employee and time and expense approval?" and we're going to answer yes. When it asks, "Do you wish to enforce strict rules for time entry?" we're going to say no, and then click Save. Next, we're going to need to set up a custom security role for managers so that they can access the time and expense workflow approval. So to do that, we're going to the company settings and then to security. And we suggest that you take the security roles that you have already set up for a manager's role. And when you click Add, copy that role and change it slightly. In this case, we just added the letter T behind it so we can remember that this is the security role that allows time to be approved. When you do that, you also scroll down and make sure that time and expense is checked for all 3, labor, equipment, and miscellaneous expenses. And under HR, make sure a check mark is next to the time approval and the miscellaneous expense approval options. Then click Save and Close. Now that you have this custom security role set up, you'll need to apply it to some users. We're still in the global settings, under company settings, and now we'll click Users. Open those managers that you want to add this ability to approve labor time cards and miscellaneous expenses, and change the security role to that new custom role you created, and then click Save. For today's example, we're going to be using Brad Williams with the custom created security role that allows time and expense approval. And we're also going to use a second user that is an administrator. Next, we suggest that you go back to your home menu, go to HR, and in the line item that says active employees, go over to the actions bar and first look at the organization chart. Your organization chart may not be set up just yet. However, the example we're using today is where Brad Williams needs to approve labor time cards and miscellaneous expenses. Brad is able to approve those for Larry Turner and Rob Reyna. In addition, we want to set this up so that Brad can also approve time cards for Catherine Liebarger, Steve Bradshaw, and Ben Schultz, because at times they may be working on projects managed by Brad Williams. To do this, we first want to set up this hierarchy or organizational chart and make sure that these two employees are linked to their manager, Brad Williams. So we'll go back to HR. Across from that same line, it says active employees, go to actions and assign manager. If we scroll down, we'll make sure that Larry Turner is assigned to the manager, Brad Williams, and Rob Reiner. But notice those will be the only two assigned to Brad Williams as their manager. Next, we're going to go back to the global settings, go to users, and we're going to add Brad Williams again. For those that are not under his direct management, we can click on this option, Time and Approval Access, and add Ben Schultz, Catherine Liebarger, and Steve Bradshaw, and then click Save. And we'll click Save again, and then we'll go back home. Now, I'm logged in as administrator at the moment, but to illustrate how this process will work, I'm going to log out for a moment, and I'm going to log back in as Brad Williams, the manager that's going to be approving labor time cards, and click Sign In. For this illustration, we've already entered some time cards for each of the employees we've mentioned. To show you how a manager is going to approve labor time cards, we're going to go to the main menu. Again, we're logged in as Brad Williams. We go to the main menu, click on Human Resources, and we've already entered some labor time cards. So we're going to see right now there's 8 pending. I'm just going to open those and remind you that in the organizational chart, Brad Williams can enter time for himself. He cannot approve time for himself, but he can enter it. He can also enter time for all employees, but he can only approve because he's manager of Larry and Rob. Brad can only approve time for those two. In addition, we added Catherine Liebarger, Steve Bradshaw, and Ben Schultz as others that Brad can approve time for, and we did that in Brad's user settings. I've also entered a time card for Barry Kanowski, someone that Brad is not able to approve for, and Gordon Hill. So now, once we have all of these in, we have one time card for each. I'm going to select all, click Global Changes, and then select Approve Time Cards, and click on Apply Global Changes. Now we're going to see some error messages, and we can see that the only 3 that Brad was not able to approve were himself and those other 2 managers that were not either under his management on the org chart or were not added as exceptions. His approvals posted properly. We'll click Close. The same process for approving miscellaneous expenses is almost identical to labor time cards. You'll see clicking on Actions, Approve Miscellaneous Expenses, and it's the same process as approving labor time cards. For additional information on these subjects, go to the Help articles, down to Settings. Under the Workflow subheading, we're going to Time and Expenses. This article has the chart we talked about today with the 3 different options for workflow approval on labor time cards and miscellaneous expenses, plus additional articles on how to do the different tasks that we demonstrated in this video segment.